Did you know the average person knows almost nothing on how computers operate? Today I'm here to turn you from an average Joe to a computer building wizard. There's a lot of arguments on why people choose to purchase a pre-built computer rather than building it yourself. It's not time consuming, and if there's an issue, they can just RMA the machine and send you a new one, no issue. However, when you are purchasing the pre-built, you might not really know exactly what you're getting unless you actually open up the computer chassis and check the individual parts, or it can come with a lot of bloatware that'll take up space and even slow down your machine from the factory. I'm here to inform you really on how to pick out the right components and the right components for your needs. If you're unsure of what type of computer is right for you, generally I would recommend getting parts that are in the gaming computer space because their parts are fast, powerful, and can handle a lot of complex programs at once. So starting off, we'll start off with the motherboard. When it's up to motherboards, usually the consumer can pick. As long as it fits in the case, generally it will work. Again, if you're unsure of what you might need, get a gaming computer motherboard because it has all of the components that you would ever want, such as Wi-Fi, PCIe expansion slots, extra RAM slots, and room for NVMe drives, which is very important. I'd be picking the ASRock B550F gaming motherboard, for it has all of the things I listed prior. Next up would be our CPU. There are generally two manufacturers that you might want to pick from, AMD or Intel. AMD has more cores per dollar and is generally cheaper, but Intel's chipset is usually faster and more expensive. With the motherboard, I do have to pick an AMD chipset, because the motherboard supports AM4 only, and that's the chipset that's only made by AMD and not Intel. So I'll be going with the AMD Ryzen 9 3900X. It's fast, has more than enough cores to run a few multi-threaded programs. You can do almost anything that is CPU based. However, AMD does not have any internalized graphics, so we'll need to get a graphics card, which will go on to my second point of getting any modern GPU out there. We have a full-size ACX board, so generally any graphics card that can fit in the slot will work. I'd recommend NVIDIA compared to AMD between those two manufacturers. For NVIDIA, they have a really good lineup this year of the RTX cards, the 30 series. The RTX 3080 would be my choice because it has the best price per dollar compared to AMD in terms of performance. Let's see, the NVMe is next with the NVMe drives. They're fast and they're very reliable. Anything that is with Sony is something I'd recommend because Sony is they have very excellent warranty protections in case if your drive fails, and they can cost anywhere from $50 to $200 depending on how much space you want. Going next would be the RAM. RAM used to be very difficult to buy, but now with the DDR4 coming out a few years ago, now that the standard most motherboards hold, it's easy enough to just set a budget of what you want, of how fast you want, in terms of speed and how many gigs you want. If you're doing anything more than surf the web, I'd recommend getting 16 gigs, as generally doing anything more than surfing the web will cause a lot of RAM usage, so I'd recommend the Corsair Vengeance 2 8-gig sticks to make up that 16 gigs, as you would need both expansion slots on the motherboard that we have in order to get the max amount of speed. Next would be our power supply, which is the last component you generally have to worry about. The power supply is one of the easiest components to find. Generally, for a gaming computer, most gaming computers consume anywhere between 600 to 800 watts. So I'd recommend going anywhere between 700 to 1,000 just to kind of make up that difference. So as you upgrade in the future, if you choose, you won't have any issues about your computer not supporting it. So I'd recommend the Corsair RMX 850 watts power supply. I would of course go with the fully modular, as you'll be able to control what cords go on your PC instead of having a whole bunch of them if it's not fully modular. Now that you have picked up your components, the building part is generally the easiest part, where all you really have to do is just follow the manual that the motherboard gives you to see exactly what pins go where and what would exactly put your items. Also, each individual parts have their own manuals as well, so it'll be easy enough. It's much easier than building a Lego set, I can tell you that. But when building your PC, especially for the first time, again, just make sure that you're reading your manual and that you always have a checklist when you're picking out your parts. Go in order: motherboard, CPU, GPU if needed, RAM, and power supply and storage. This also assumes that you may have picked out a case already. Hopefully I taught you a thing or two, and that you are no longer a Joe Schmo on building a computer, but now you are a computer building wizard.